Hello, class of 2025. Congrats on being done with your first year of medical school. Amber Chess here from the Office of Academic Success, and I've made this video to introduce you to the USMLE Step 1. In this video, I will discuss your timeline, ideas for summer, tools for studying, using questions and annotation, retention strategies, and resources available. Your timeline. Here's a timeline from now until your exam. As you can see, it is recommended that you register for your exam by December 31st, 2022. OAS will host a few Step 1 sessions during the fall, one of which will cover the registration process and requirements. A CBSE practice exam will be administered in the spring of 2023, right before your intensive study period. Your intensive study period will take place from the end of HC, which is March 25th, 2023, until May 7th, 2023. You must take your Step 1 exam by May 7th because the transitions course will begin on Monday, May 8th, 2023. Ideas for summer. Relax. I cannot overstate the importance of giving yourself a break this summer. You don't want to return to school already burned out. Research. Many of you will make time for research during the summer. Familiarize yourself with resources. I'll go through the suggested resources in a few minutes, but you might want to spend some time this summer seeing which ones you like, which might work for you. You can compare cost and practicality, and many of the resources offer a free trial so you can try them out. Also, don't forget about the resources you became familiar with during this last year. These will be useful in continuing to build your foundational knowledge alongside UWorld questions. If you feel up for getting the ball rolling on step prep, and you don't have to do this, but if you do feel like you're up for it, consider starting with one of the bigger systems presented in the first year, or something that you know that you are weak in. Tools for studying. Most everyone preparing for Step 1 uses UWorld, First Aid, and Pathoma. UWorld, as you probably know, is the gold standard as far as question banks go for Step 1. Student Affairs is working on obtaining UWorld subscriptions for you and your class. Please note that this is a 6-month subscription, so if you are going to start prepping over the summer using UWorld, you will need to add more time to your subscription. It is recommended that you do this before activating your account, as it is a bit cheaper this way. First Aid is a high-yield textbook that reads more like an outline. Many of you are already familiar with this resource. As you start to prepare for Step 1, you'd want to make sure that you have a clean version so that you're able to annotate into it. A new edition comes out every December, but you don't necessarily need the newest edition. You can check for updates in the newer edition on the first few pages and compare it to the older versions. Pathoma videos and text are also quite valuable. You can access a free trial by visiting their website. Again, do not underestimate reviewing the resources you used during the last year. The texts that got you through the first year are a goldmine of knowledge to help you sustain the foundation that you've built. There are many other commonly used resources, but be careful not to spread yourself too thin with these. I really only encourage you to reach out for these resources if you know you have a weakness in a particular topic. Here are those that are popular with upper class peers. A few years ago, we surveyed students after they received their Step 1 scores to see what they would recommend for the classes below them. Here's what they said. A new survey was sent to the class right above you, which is our first class to take the exam pass-fail, and the data will be shared soon. Question-based approach to studying, dissecting and diagnosing questions and annotation. I recommend using UWorld questions to learn from. What I mean by this is letting the questions guide you through the content that you need to know. This is an effective way to prepare for exams, and many of you probably used a similar method when preparing for the MCAT. In UWorld, there are several options. At this stage, it is recommended that you complete the questions untimed and in tutor mode. Select the system that you'd like to study, and UWorld will produce a block of questions for you. Work through the questions one by one with the intention of learning as much as you can. Your intention is not to self-test yet, so don't get upset if you don't know the correct answers. You are only using UWorld as a learning tool. You can think of the question bank like a vehicle to guide you through the topics that you'll need to know. Let's say the first question pops up. Read the question. If you know it, great. Think about the answer, uncover the answer choices, and if your answer is there, select it. UWorld will then show you if you got it right or wrong, and provide a rich explanation. Read the explanation carefully, paying close attention to anything that you didn't already know. You will have a copy of First Aid open to the system that you're working in. After reading the UWorld explanation, flip over to First Aid. Read what First Aid has to say about this topic. And anything that you learned from UWorld that isn't already in First Aid and isn't already in your brain, you're annotating that right into the book. If a question pops up that you do not know, don't just guess. Take a step back and teach it to yourself using whatever resources you like in order to answer the question. Think of this like an open book test. Then return to the question and answer it. Hopefully you got it right. A few reasons why this method is more effective than just guessing is because you are encoding the information in a way that makes sense to you, making it your own. You're also doing the legwork of learning, a desirable difficulty, forcing you to slow down and remain deeply engaged with the content rather than just passively guessing and reading the explanation, improving long-term performance. Of course, this takes more time, but the benefits in understanding and retention are worth it. Annotating. As stated before, most students annotate right into First Aid. For every disease, you should know these 4 things. And for every drug, you'll want to know these 4. Start to think about building a framework when going through your questions. This will help you determine what to annotate. Let's take a look at a sample question. Here are some things that you might ask yourself to frame your learning. Okay, now let's try a pharmacology question. Consider these questions to frame your learning. Retention strategies. If you're going to spend time and effort prepping now, you must consider how to retain the information you're learning long term. Let's first talk about learning strategies. 2 strategies proven to help with retention are spaced repetition and retrieval practice. Spaced repetition is seeing the content you're studying broken up over several sessions rather than all in one sitting. 5 hours studying spread over 2 weeks is better than the same 5 hours in one sitting. Retrieval practice is simply bringing information back to mind from memory. Anki automates these 2 strategies, but it also has its pitfalls. Anki should really be used only as a finishing tool after you've consolidated the content. It is not a primary resource. You must learn the information first. Also, Anki can lead to rote memorization, which creates a problem if the content you've learned is presented in a novel way on a different question. And this will happen. Odds are you're not going to see questions asked the same way that they are asked on your Anki card. You want to ensure that if you're using Anki, you're forcing yourself to elaborate on every card. Some ways to do this are asking yourself these questions. And please know that not everyone uses Anki. I've seen many students who don't use it do very well on step 1. So if Anki doesn't work for you, you don't need it. An alternative to Anki is a UWorld journal. To do this, create notes to help you learn and reinforce challenging topics from missed questions. Pose questions on your slides or in the margin of your notes to quiz yourself. You might even use color-coded tags to prioritize content or topics. This is basically a digital document that you keep as you learn from questions. If you Google UWorld Journal, there are several examples online. Finally, there's the study burst method for long-term retention. Details on this method can be found on the OAS webpage under USMLE Advisement. But here are some ideas of activities to do to increase retention after completing questions. Resources available. There's a long list of resources available from the school for you during your preparation for Step 1 that will be shared in the fall. But here are some resources you might be interested in now. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to OAS. Have a great summer.